My name is Kelly McBride, and I'll be discussing the A-ADDIE instructional design method this evening. We'll also learn a little bit about the proper techniques for shelving books as a library page. A-ADDIE is an instructional design model that's been used since the 1970s. Teachers use it as a tool to develop quality instruction to help their students meet learning goals and objectives. A-ADDIE is an acronym, and each letter represents a different stage in the instructional design process. The first A stands for assessment. This is the initial appraisal of student needs and priorities. Here, teachers can find out who their learners are and what kind of learning gaps might exist. The second A, or the analysis phase, represents the investigation into the findings from the initial assessment. Teachers should evaluate the results of the assessment and identify the instructional problem and the resulting objectives and learning goals. This could also be the time to determine the best method for delivering the instruction in a workable timeline. The next phase, design, involves creating a blueprint for instruction, so this is when you lay out your teaching plan. Here, teachers can determine what resources they'd like to use for their instruction, activities they might implement, and what sort of teaching style will be most effective for their audience. The next D stands for development, and this is where the planning is put into action. The instructor creates the content, media, and resources for delivering their instruction. This is the phase most of us have been in this past week as we prepared for our presentations. Implementation is the fifth phase of A-ADDIE, in which the instruction is shared with the learner, and evaluation is the final stage of A-ADDIE. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and hop into the lesson I've planned for today. Now, if you don't mind, let's all imagine you're beginning your first day of work as a library page, and I'll be training you on the basics of shelving books and the Dewey Decimal System. Now, for the sake of time, let's imagine we've met together in one of the library meeting rooms, and I've given you a simple paper assessment. And I'm encouraging you to do your best work and not be afraid, and this is only to help me know how to best instruct you going forward in your training. This is the initial phase of A-ADDIE, where we do a short assessment up front so I'd have a good jumping off point for instruction. The assessment might look something like this. And after analyzing the results of the assessment, I've decided on a few learning objectives for our training, which we'll get into in a moment. So you can see here it's a pretty simple assessment. I've asked our library pages to place the following fiction call numbers in alphabetical order and also place the non-fiction call numbers in numerical order from lowest to highest. So everyone, welcome to your first day as a library page. We're going to begin your training today with a short presentation so you'll better understand how important this job is, and better yet, how to do it well. So let's take a look at a few pictures. Can anyone tell me what's wrong with this picture? Imagine if this was your library. Do you think you'd be able to find anything? Or what about this picture? She's a library page. Anything wrong with this picture? Or what about this one? In our library, we don't use our cards as unicorns, but that's just here. Well, here are a few of our goals for today. We want to establish the importance of proper book shelving in the library. We're also going to identify the parts of a book, including the spine label, the call number, title, barcode. And we also want to train you, the library pages, to learn proper shelving techniques, including placement on the shelf, right-of-ways within the stacks, and the Dewey Decimal System. Let's talk a little bit about your own experience coming to the library. Can you usually find what you're looking for? Do you have to ask for help? How does it feel when you find the book you're looking for without having to ask for help? It feels good. It feels like a success. But what about when you can't find that book? What I'm trying to get at here is that this job matters. If books and movies are thrown about or shoved onto shelves this way and that, we're not very likely to find them, are we? And if we can't find those items, they might as well not exist. Remember that if we can't find a book, we might as well not have it. Your job will be to place books back on the library shelves in the correct place. But how do we know where a book belongs? Well, we've got a system for that. While each book is different and may contain another whole world of information inside of it, there are a few things that will look the same on all of our library books. Every book will have a title and an author. They will each have a library barcode and an RFID tag on the inside of the back cover. Just so you know, RFID stands for Radio Frequency Identification Device. This tag helps us check books in and out, do collection inventories, and it also serves as a security device. But the information most important to you and your job will be found on the spine of the book. Each time we purchase a book, we place a spine label near the bottom of the book's spine. There will be 3 important pieces of information to note on the spine. That includes the collection, the call number, and the author. These are samples of what a spine label may look like for a work of fiction and also a work of nonfiction. The collection refers to the type of book and therefore tells us what section of the library the book lives in. While the names and locations of the collections can vary library to library, these are the abbreviations we use at our library to represent each of our book collections. Now, while it might look like gibberish up front, you'll soon be confident in navigating these collections and you'll know right where everything belongs. The call number is like an address. We put call numbers on our nonfiction books, and the number tells us where the book is located within the library. We'll touch more on call numbers in a bit. Finally, the author's last name is shortened down to the first 3 letters of his or her last name. How do we shelve fiction books? If a book is a work of fiction, you'll organize them alphabetically by the author's last name. This is why we print the first 3 letters of the author's last name in the spine label for help. Titles by the same author are filed in alphabetical order under the author's last name. The title of the book starts with the words a, an, or the, you can ignore those little words and begin with the next word in the title to alphabetize them. Let's look at this example. Has this been shelved correctly? Nope. Looks like that second book should be placed where the third is, don't you think? What about nonfiction books? How do we shelve those? If the book is a work of nonfiction, it will be arranged numerically according to the Dewey Decimal System. Anybody heard of Dewey before? Let's take a look at this video for a quick overview. And if you're participating from home, just click on this green link and it will take you out to YouTube to learn a little bit more about that shelving system. So, nonfiction books are shelved in straight numerical order, and then alphabetically by the letters in the author's last name. So if we take a look at this shelf as another example, is it shelved correctly? It looks like those 2 books there in green, the 919s, are mixed up and should be switched around. Now it's time to give it a try. If you're playing from home, go ahead and click the red dice to be taken out to the internet for a chance to try your hand at shelving books accordingly in alphabetical order for fiction books and numerically through the Dewey Decimal System for nonfiction books. Now that you know how to correctly order books on the shelf, here's a few other tips or do's and don'ts that will help you do your best work. Do pull receipts and bookmarks and papers from books as you find them. When we check in a book at the circulation desk, we do revise each thing that comes through, but occasionally we'll miss them. So if you see these things, go ahead and pull them out of the books before you shelve them. This is a great tip. Order your book cart before taking it to the shelf. This way you're not running all around the library with each new book you need to shelve. Keep bookends handy. That way, as you come to the end of a row, you can place them if there's not one, and if there is one, go ahead and tighten that up and straighten up the shelves to make it a little more organized looking. If you see a patron coming towards you in the aisles, give them the right of way. Go ahead and move your cart to the side and let them through. You may even ask them if they need help for anything. You may from time to time find litter or garbage in the stacks. Collect that while you're at it and toss it just to keep our shelves looking nice and clean. As we said before, straighten the shelves as you go. Even if the books are all in order, they may still look a little sloppy, so go ahead and straighten them as you go. And if you do find an item out of place, feel free to take the time to put it back where it belongs. As we said before, if we can't find an item, we might as well not have it. And if you see a patron looking confused, see if they need help. And if you have a question, ask for help when you need it. As for our don'ts, don't guess where an item goes. Always ask for help. Your library staff is always happy to help. Don't overcrowd the shelves. If you need to, you can shift items to the row below. Don't block patrons from seeing the shelf where you're working. If it becomes clear that they'd like to look at the shelf where you're working, take a step aside and ask if you can help. Don't carry on long conversations in the stacks. Be respectful of library patrons. And never underestimate the importance of your job. Now it's time to give it a try. At this point, I'd provide each of the page trainees with a book cart filled with library books placed in no particular order. I'd ask them to arrange the books, one side with fiction and the other with nonfiction, and then order them correctly. When they finish, they can check each other's work, and then I'd assess their work. When it's clear that our page trainees are confident arranging books on the carts, they'd progress to shelving books in their correct locations on the shelves, limiting them to a small section so I can shelf read behind them to check for mistakes and successes. This brings us to our final stage of A-ADDIE, the evaluation. In this example, I'd shelf read behind the new pages to determine whether or not my instruction was successful, and of course welcome any questions along the way to help pinpoint points of confusion or misunderstanding. And here we have a few questions to review what we've learned. What information does a book's spine label tell us? How are fiction books organized? Who has the right of way in the book stacks? Why is it important for books to be arranged correctly on the shelf? I hope you enjoyed this lesson. Thank you for your time.